Hello, everyone. To our audience and to our panelists that you see on the screen, thank you so very much for joining our second annual I Am Remarkable celebration, a week-long celebration. With a focus on underrepresented groups, I Am Remarkable is a global initiative which aims to empower everyone to celebrate their achievements in the workplace and beyond. And this is I Am Remarkable Week, which kicks off today, September 8th, with this CXO discussion. And as we just were told a few moments ago, no pressure, but the celebration goes all week until September 15th. It is an annual week of events, virtual talks, and online workshops to provide confidence-boosting opportunities and to celebrate all that's remarkable about you, about all of us. So before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to take a moment at this kickoff just to share a bit of background about the I Am Remarkable program. There are two great female leaders at Google, honest, but both of their names, participating in a women's training program. And during the training, there was this mini exercise where they were asked to write down their personal accomplishments. And I'm sure that there are many of us on this call who can relate, but they found the exercise not too easy to do. So because of that, they decided to explore the topic of women's self-advocacy some more. And it is then in 2015 that this program, I Am Remarkable, started. So the original focus and the centering focus was on the empowering of women to talk more openly about their accomplishments in the workplace. And really importantly, to challenge the established gender modesty norms. But very quickly and steadily, it was realized that some of these same issues that were raised for women were not limited to women. They applied to so many underrepresented groups as well, and they even applied to those who may be in well-represented groups. So again, while the focus is on underrepresented groups, the I Am Remarkable workshops are available to everyone. And super importantly, the movement has also opened up to those who are looking to be an ally. But for us to continue to make progress, we have to lean on one another. We have to listen to one another, learn from one another. And in order for that to happen, we need leaders who have empathy, who have also taken action themselves and in their own companies consistently and unconditionally. And therefore, I am personally so thankful as a sponsor of the I Am Remarkable program that three inspiring leaders are giving of their time today, caring enough to share their learnings, and bold enough to pass along their valuable insights. So let me introduce them. Rajit, if I could get you to give a quick wave to the screen. Rajit is the managing director for IHG Hotels in Southeast Asia and Korea. He is responsible for the hotel chain's performance and the reputation across the region, where IHG has more than 100 hotels and 85 in the pipeline. And I can't wait to get back in one of them when we can all travel again. But super importantly, Rajit is also the chairman of IHG's Sikh Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. And Rajit, we really look forward to hearing from you. And Geetha, if I could get you to give a wave, business executive officer at Nestlé, where she has a very rich 20 years of experience, so impressive. Today, she oversees the food business in Nestlé for the Philippines, and she's a firm believer in empowering women to make a difference. And she has helped helm the highly meaningful program. I'm going to give the translation. We'll ask her to share more about it if it works itself in. Never Try, Never Know, which is a really important program to Nestlé. So we look forward to hearing from you as well. And Kat, finally, away from you, if you don't mind. Thank you also for joining us from GSK today, where Kat also has a rich 20 years of experience in global communication. But she has really honed a passion for digital, for media marketing, and for measurement, where she believes that results can be driven by a well-balanced mix of art and science. And this applies not just to work, but in the work of empowerment and inclusion too. So thank you all so much once again for carving out the time to share with us. And I'm going to ask a first question to kick things off. And it's a question that we first asked all of those women in our program to answer. But what makes you remarkable? And Kat, I would love to start with you.
Thanks, Stephanie, and thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. I am remarkable because I'm an active member at GSK of driving, active change in our workplace. I'm incredibly passionate about how we create a more inclusive and diverse workplace. And we have such a rich diversity in Australia and New Zealand, and our workplace needs to reflect that. And I think we need to ensure our communities are reflected and the unique contributions that they bring. I think my motivation for being part of I Am Remarkable, which is a key part of, which is a real enabler for me in terms of helping drive that active change in the GSK business. We have a number of, allyship initiatives in GSK, which are wonderful, and some of them are very extensive. But I'm a firm believer that it's really the power of small and consistent actions that change the world. And I think I Am Remarkable is a platform that enables that, enables you to start those conversations. So that has actually, I'm very grateful that I was given the opportunity to participate, and that has really helped me unlock a new way of driving inclusion and diversity in our business that hadn't been there before, and it really complements the other work we're doing.
Thank you so much, Kat. Geetha, could you share with us what makes you remarkable?
Hi, hello everyone. I mean, I start with myself first. I think I'm a 20-year veteran at Nestlé. I've been helming the food business for the longest time. I was in Philippines. I'm back in Malaysia. I'm remarkable. I'm remarkable because I'm a resilient, independent career woman. But I think more importantly, I'm a proud wife and mother of two. So bringing this together has made me really, I think, quite a complete person. At the workplace, even at home, I feel that I can make a big difference, having this very balanced lifestyle that I have been able to lead. So that's one part of it. And if I look at it, from a company perspective, because I'm not working in HR, but then we had this very, very good opportunity within the MAGGI team to actually really drive purpose. And that's some of the learnings that we took working with the Google team in Malaysia, where we took some learnings from that and we brought and made I would say quite a big difference to outside of work, where we could actually bring parts of the program to the community. So we're very, very proud of that. We want to lead with purpose, make a big difference to the marginalized community. And I think that is something that I'm very proud of. I'm remarkable because I'm able to do that using, leveraging what I have within the company to take it outside the workplace.
Thank you, Geetha. And for those who are interested, if you do a search for the MAGGI program, you can find a good bit of YouTube videos and some information. I find it to be really inspiring what you've put in place. So thank you for sharing. Rajit, what makes you remarkable?
Thank you, Steph. So before I say what makes me remarkable, I think it's important for me to acknowledge that this was probably one of the most difficult questions I had to answer. I read about the program, but when I first participated in the program, this was the one moment where I was spending a lot of time thinking really hard about what I should say. And that's when I realized the power of this program. It's a very simple concept on self-advocacy, but it's one that we rarely do because we're always looking out for people. And throughout my career, it's always been about people development and what I want to do to kind of enhance someone else's career. You rarely look upon yourself to say what you have done and what you're really proud of. I think this program made me realize how important that is, because you're not just looking at yourself, but you're also getting other people to talk about how remarkable they are. So for me, I am remarkable because I'm truly passionate about developing talent and unlocking potential in individuals, and especially individuals who may not be aware of what they're capable of. And over the years, I'm really proud to say that I've uncovered, developed, supported, nurtured many high potential team members who have since stepped up and are currently leading their own teams across different functions and different companies. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction to see that, I played a part in that, wonderful leadership journey that they have all embarked on. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajit. And I think that's such a powerful example of the learnings from the origins of the program. As mentioned, it started with women finding it challenging to answer the question why they were remarkable. But as mentioned, it's difficult for so many to answer. So thank you for sharing that and highlighting that this really applies to everyone. So I'm going to move to learn a bit more about what each of you have been doing in your companies, because you have been leaders and made possible for I Am Remarkable to come into your companies to be a part of what some of your teams are doing. So I would really love to hear about that journey, the journey to making the decision that you would launch I Am Remarkable. And you did certainly allude to some of this. But if you could also touch on, like, how did empathy play a role? Empathy in your leadership, particularly. And if we could start in the reverse order this time, Rajit, maybe come back to you.
Sure, thank you. Our I Am Remarkable journey at IHG, it's been truly an amazing journey. I'll give you a bit of context on how we chanced upon this incredible program that Google launched and how it's kind of taken us by storm, and I hope it's going to keep running, over the next few years. So our region's diversity, equity, and inclusion vision is to fundamentally shift the needle and invest in a team that reflects the composition of the communities where we serve, where we want to give them an environment where they can all thrive and not just be themselves, but actually be the absolute best selves every day. So while, as a D&I Council chairman, together with our council members, we were creating this vision. We started planning for ways to achieve this. And it's about that time that one of our council members attended an I Am Remarkable workshop through his studies at INSEAD, and he absolutely loved it. And obviously, he came back and suggested that we speak to Google about rolling out this program across IHG. And because it ticks a lot of the boxes as to what we're trying to achieve from our D&I initiatives, we felt this was an ideal program to unlock, the great potential we have within the teams. So I must give credit to the huge amount of work and support that the team at Google did, who was super supportive and helped us roll out the program in record time. Just 90 days from the initial suggestion by one of my colleagues, we launched the program across Southeast Asia and Korea in late August. On one single day, we ran 9 concurrent workshops in 9 countries with a total of 150 colleagues. So a huge thank you to the Google team who ensured that we received the training and helped with trainers for these sessions. We've had some really great feedback since then, and there's already great excitement across the business to get involved in this. We now have more than 30 IHG leaders trained to run these sessions in different countries. And guess what? Conducted in different languages. We started here in Southeast Asia and Korea, and I'm so excited to say that we'll be rolling this program out globally next month in October. There's still a long way to go to get the program to all our Southeast Asia and Korea colleagues, but we have started an incredible journey and have lots of advocates across the business already. But what's really key is that we keep moving, we keep embedding this into the everyday lives and how we do our work, how do you carry on doing our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajit. I think that it is one of the things that stands out about the I Am Remarkable program is that it's not insular. It's not something that just us at Google are looking at, or any company is looking at in isolation. We know that diversity and inclusion and self-advocacy and allyship is so important to everyone. And so to be able to engage partners is a really valuable thing So thanks for the feedback. But again, thank you all for being bold and stepping up and leading. And Kat, would love for you to share a bit about your journey, how your leadership played a role and what you've learned.
Thanks, Stephanie. Actually, it's fascinating listening to Rajit, because I think I'm almost the antithesis by way of experience in terms of how we are embracing I am remarkable. So I was lucky enough to be part of a workshop, but it was already something that had been picked up by our global team. So the global organization, together with Google, had embedded this initiative, but not in Australia and New Zealand. So I had tacked on to a workshop that was being run out of the US, just sort of out of curiosity. And I think that was where I felt there was a genuine connection, a huge empathy in terms of what people were sharing. And I could see that in my team. I could see that in the business, that this would be something that would be hugely beneficial to so many people. And that's what really motivated me. I thought, well, okay, let's roll some of these out. Let's embed it in our local business. And how do we do that? There wasn't any facilitators in this region. So I got on a call at 5 a.m. to do some training, and I had to tack on to a UK training, but that was good. And then I worked with the local Google team actually, and they've since become training, since being trained as well. Our leadership team, do you know what? This has been lots and lots of little conversations. I started with a very tight-knit group of people, shared the idea, practiced a workshop, have since taken it to the leadership team that I'm on, and we have agreed to roll this out more fully. So whilst I've run workshops internally, I've run some workshops externally as well, really just to practice and get a feel for how we can roll this out in our business. So I guess that and change in terms of passing it on, to continuing to pass it on in terms of, Rajit, you're you're starting it, I'm taking it up, and I'm really proud to do that. And I just see the resonance in people when we talk about the struggle that is self-advocacy, and it just unlocked something in me that I thought needed to be shared further.
It's really powerful. Geetha?
It's very powerful. For us here, what we did was we did it quite differently, in the sense that, we were very fortunate, and a shout out to the Malaysian Google team. I think they introduced the I'm Remarkable program to us, Sam and Yao. It was actually partially because we were looking at how we can actually build a campaign going beyond product. So that's how we started with Tak Kenal Tak Cinta. It means never try, never know. And, we felt that we had something that could really embody that. And we wanted to connect it back, of course, to cooking and what cooking does, in the lives of our consumers. And actually, it just started as a spark. I sat through one of the workshops. It was amazing. And, from then onwards, we actually connected it back to what we could do as a business. And we didn't start internally. We took it out, and that's how we started this whole program. So from the Never Try, Never Know, we extended it. We said, well, look, you've got to make a difference. We've got to make a tangible difference within the community. We have the power to do that. And how is it that we can make a difference? Most of our consumers are from what we call the bottom 40, B40 group in Malaysia. And we felt that this program and that could make such a huge difference. So we extended it. It started with the key learnings from I'm Remarkable. And, the Google team came in to build the confidence, allow these women a safe space to really express themselves, to articulate. And this was simply amazing. And we brought our mentors. We call them mentors. These are women that are our brand ambassadors, and they had so much of empathy. They could really, really connect. The women could really connect with our mentors. So we took it and we built on it together with the Google team, and it's really it's something that internally the company now is using that, and to actually use it as a best practice, use it as a model to to go well beyond product and connecting with women and making a big difference outside rather than in just internally.
Another excellent example, all very inspirational. Lots of note-taking here, and I can see on the side with some of my colleagues as well. So thank you, all three, for sharing. I'm going to shift gears just slightly. You know, we talked at the beginning about a bit of evolution that has taken place in the I Am Remarkable program, starting out again with self-advocacy with a focus on women, and then realizing that this was a challenge for many, particularly in underrepresented groups. And that has also now evolved to the importance of allyship. And I'm going to read here the definition from Webster Dictionary, which defines allyship as follows. The state or condition of being an ally. No surprise there. But it continues on to say that it is a supportive association with another person or group. Specifically, such association with the members of a marginalized or mistreated group to which one does not belong. And I think perhaps that last part is a really crucial and powerful part of the definition. And I Am Remarkable as a group has expanded on that over time to include allyship being defined as a lifelong process of building relationships that are based on trust, and really importantly, consistency, accountability. And again, it's with that marginalized individuals or groups of people. It's an opportunity for those of us who may have some privilege that can be in different pockets, of course, to recognize systemic inequalities, to learn more about lived experiences of others, and to find out how best to support each other. So as we move into allyship from just self-advocacy, both continuing to be important, I would love to hear from you. What does allyship mean to you? And is there anything that you've learned along your own journey that you wish other people knew about allyship? So Geetha, maybe we could pick back up with you for that.
It's not an easy one, actually, because it means different things to different people. And having said that, in terms of allyship, I think it's, as what you said, because you're never in that person's shoe, right? You need to, it's trying to have that empathy, making sure that you understand better whether you are in a position to make a difference. I think that's key. So in our case, when we did this, and I go back to the program that we did, it was something that we really needed to understand what are the challenges that the community of that women were actually going through, and whether we, in our position, what are the steps that we could take internally to actually try to help them and make a difference, you know? So it really is, because it's easy for us to say that what we want to do. It's just that, you know, that empathy, it really has to be there. And I'm saying that, you know, it's experience. One part of it, you have to experience it. The other part of it is you need to also study. It comes together, because you need to understanding through knowledge and understanding through experience. It's very, very important. Only then you can build, you know, that you can have the empathy, but you can also bring it together and bring it together to make a difference. Otherwise, you know, it's just talk and you won't be able to do it. So I think it's key that you bring knowledge and you bring that experience, you put it together, but have a purpose first. Without that purpose, have an understanding and a purpose, and then you know, make sure that you have the tools in the toolbox to make that difference.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Rajit, would you be up for sharing as well? What does allyship mean to you? Thank you, Stephanie. And thanks, Geetha. I think what you said earlier, where it says that it means different things to different people, that goes to the entire sense of allyship, right?
when you look at the definition of allyship, I think what's key is the fact that, some definitions call out the fact that it's a lifelong process where we are building relationships based on trust, and we are addressing inequalities that exist in our everyday lives, right? And I want to kind of give a slightly different spin to this. At ISG, we embrace allyship as fundamental to how we run our business. And if you ask me how, let me give you a bit of context around that. With hotels in thousands of communities all over the world, our business and brands touch the lives of millions of people every day. By caring for our guests and colleagues, recognizing and respecting one another, protecting the environment, and giving back to communities, we ensure that we are delivering our promise and our true purpose of true hospitality for good. And hospitality, I see it as a great leveler because everyone is welcomed equally. And we serve the communities in which we operate in. But the only way that you can truly represent and serve these communities properly is to really understand what drives them. You can't possibly understand the communities and what drives them without having strong representation from them. So for us across ISG, we place a huge level of importance on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is to ensure that we try to understand and represent the communities we operate in. We need each and every one of the team to get involved and to lean in to ensure that we have strong representation from our communities globally so that we can make positive change in our lives and each other's lives every day. And that is what we look to do across all our hotels operating globally, as we strive to deliver our promise of true hospitality for good every day.
So wonderful. Thank you. Kat, would you share with us, please?
Yeah, thanks. I think there's so much in what Geetha and Rajit have already said. I probably disagree with the original statement that you are an ally only if you're not part of a group. That you become an ally not being part of a group. I believe you can be an ally within a group. I believe you can advocate within a group. So I probably disagree with that part of the official statement. And for me, I think allyship is, if I think about it in a workplace sense, it's really about trying to create, an environment that allows people, I guess, to thrive in their own way. And I really loved Geetha's commentary, because I think what's the balance is understanding that everybody is different, but I don't know how you think, I don't know how you feel, and I never actually will fully understand that. So having the right, going to Rajit's point, I think having the right representation of people to help shape what those focus and opportunities need to be actually meaningful, and not just something an individual or a group of people think is the right thing, but really driven from actual conversations and understanding. So that's what I think. I think one of the things too that would be great for people to understand is that everyone is a part of this, can be a part of this, and it's really small things that can make big changes. I think just thinking about how you're engaging people, what language you're using, how you're speaking, being positively reinforcing to people when they are self-advocating. I think there's so many things from an allyship perspective that people probably sometimes these I guess phrases become a thing unto themselves, and then it's I'm not part of that, ironically, but actually everybody can be, and it's a really simple thing to do. And I think if I was to give one thing to everybody, it would be that we can all do something, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. It's just thinking about your environment, thinking about the people you're coming into connection with, and really looking at ways of unlocking that those opportunities for people. A lot of listening.
Well said. And thank you also for sharing different perspective up front. I think that's what makes these conversations so valuable. So really appreciate that each of you sharing your personal perspective of allyship and what you've learned along the way, what others could perhaps absorb and reflect on. The next question I'm going to put more in the company perspective. And Rajit, I'm just going to put this one to you, if okay, to learn about some wider programs and how you've thought about, from a company perspective, allyship at IHG.
Thank you, Stephanie. A great example of allyship at IHG is our RISE program. So this is essentially a program supporting female leaders to grow their careers and fulfill their ambition to be hotel general managers. So this program started some years back in Australia and has since expanded to Southeast Asia and Korea. And we are currently in our third cohort in this region. And I'm so proud to say that we've had some fantastic successes over the years. Across our last cohort, 50% of the participants have since started advancing into new opportunity, with some already moving into general manager roles. Today, 45% of our general managers in Thailand, 45%, and in Thailand, where it's one of our fastest growing markets, 45% are female. So these numbers are showing that our efforts are bearing fruit, and we are slowly moving the needle to achieve our ambition. And although we've made some great progress, as the saying goes, there's always more we can do, right? And I think, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, our strong belief is that good enough is actually just not good enough. And so you need to keep pushing the boundaries on this front. The RISE initiative and the programs like I Am Remarkable are just great ways to help build strength and allies across teams. And I think that's something which is very much needed in today's world.
Thank you for that. And a lot of things that I find really helpful in your response, but particularly about how you're actually looking at impact. I think it's one thing, and it's important, right, for us to be having these conversations, to talk about allyship, self-advocacy, but to be looking at the difference that it's making. And in the case that you mentioned, which is the percentage of females who are managers in Thailand. And that's what we really want to get to in the end, isn't it? So really good to hear that. I'm going to ask just one more question. I'm going to put this one to Kat and Geetha, and then we're going to be opening it up after this last question to hear anything on the minds of those in our audience. So please do get your questions ready, and we will certainly put those forward to our panelists. It's an incredible opportunity to learn from three passionate leaders who have actually put things in action and made things happen. But the last question that I'll put forward before we open up to the audience is to hear first from you, Kat, if you think there are any challenges that still hinder the momentum of allyship.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question. I think probably if I think about societally in Australia and New Zealand, I'd say we have seen some huge steps, much more visible steps from sporting bodies. We are well into reconciliation action plans. There's a lot more increased support for mental health. There is a lot more public availability and support of driving underrepresented groups and initiatives in the community, which I think is fantastic. I think for me, the watch out with some of these things is making sure it's not just a bandwagon. These changes have to be meaningful. They have to be fundamental. They have to be embedded in legal means or the way we actually do things as a society, as a country. But I do see lots of positive change. I see lots of positive change within our workplace, and I think that's great. For me, I think one of the barriers is probably actually looking at allies outside of marginalised or underrepresented groups. I probably may not have as much experience in the ANZ market in terms of where we're at in our I Am Remarkable journey, but one of the things that has come out for me as being quite evident is perhaps a lack of garnering support from people who don't feel impacted by this, and making sure that education and awareness is focused towards I guess people who are unaware, because you can't help and you can't be an advocate if you don't understand and don't know. So I think I'm very mindful of making sure that whilst a lot of the workshops I've started out with have really focused on groups of women and other marginalised groups, I think there's a real role for evolving that to be, and I know that there is certainly an inclusiveness in the program, but specifically looking at how we start to advocate for those, how we start to make advocates more of people who perhaps don't naturally have the empathy because they've never experienced it. So how do you transfer that? How do you get people with, people who are in positions of power and with privilege who can influence and change things, to join, to become an ally? And I think that's an interesting sort of challenge that could unlock a lot of reward.
Thank you, Kat. I really appreciate how you highlighted not just some of the challenges that maybe is hindering momentum, but thinking ahead and highlighting how we can come together and maybe solve for some of these challenges. So thank you for that. And Geetha, final one, and I say we've already got some questions coming in from the audience, but we'd just love to hear from you on the same question. Any challenges that you see that hinder the momentum, and any thoughts on how we could come together as well? I think you're still on mute, Geetha, at least from my side.
Internally, from a company standpoint in Nestlé Malaysia, we've made good strides, and that there's, in terms of the allyship, especially with inclusivity and focusing on women especially, but I think definitely it's what Kat said, actually we can actually go well beyond that as well. So but externally, I think there are challenges in the sense that, if you want to from an organization point of view, because we are a corporation, we are multinational, and you want to drive something outside, you really got to link up with like-minded entities that can actually support the cause, because otherwise you're just trying to do it on your own, and then you're good as the person who's driving it. Today I could be there, somebody comes in, it can change very quickly. So it needs continuity. You need a lot of, firstly, you need a lot of will. You need a lot of stamina. So that's one thing. You need to really rally people behind you, and talking about that, getting people to really move in that one direction. And if it's something, if it's close to their hearts, if you can you can link up, they feel it, it's emotional, definitely you get people to come on board. But when you work with entities, and I'm talking about Malaysia specifically, to get those entities, because so much of challenges within, with the pandemic, in outside what's happening, you've got to get the focus and get people to, or rather entities, it's not just that leaderships from their point of view to come in, because otherwise you're all alone and you're trying to drive it on your own, and it's as good as how much you can go. So these are the things. So if we could just these are the challenges that we face when we started this program. Whatever we do to make a difference, I think these are always the challenges. It's nothing new, I guess. Everyone else faces it. People who have actually started on this journey as well.
Thank you. Well, you're clearly three leaders have proven that you can overcome challenges, and you continue to do so and help others overcome them as well. So thank you for sharing. We have opened it up to the audience questions, and we have a couple. The first one comes from Elizabeth, and it's for Rajit. But since everyone can't see it, I'm going to read it out loud and then turn it over to you, Rajit, to pick up. But during this pandemic, we all know that the travel business, and most especially the hotel business, is one of the hardest hit industries in the last couple of years. So asking you, Rajit, how do you communicate about being remarkable when there's so much negative that's happening in the business? How do you show empathy when a lot can also seem bleak at the same time?
Thank you. And thank you, Elizabeth, for the excellent question. And thank you for acknowledging what the industry is going through. I must admit that the current pandemic is probably the hardest crisis travel industry has faced. And it's definitely affecting a lot of people's lives. But one thing we need to all remember is that history has shown us one thing, which is that travel does return, even after major crises. Take 9/11, for example, take SARS, take the global financial crisis. All of them went through very bleak situations during its peak, but it does return eventually because there is pent-up demand. But one thing that our travel industry professionals don't have an option to do is, unlike a lot of the corporate offices, which can switch into hybrid modes and work from homes and stuff of the nature, our hotel colleagues are working and facing the pandemic front on in the front line. And I think I'm truly indebted to the courage, the perseverance, and the passion they keep showing, despite working under really tiring circumstances. They joined this industry because they had a passion to serve, and that's what keeps them going. So I think, what we do, is to find ways to roll out programs like I Am Remarkable, because it's a great timing to kind of show that despite the continuing difficulties the industry is facing, there are reasons for us to kind of look back and see what we're really proud of ourselves for. So it's a really challenging time, both personally and professionally, for our colleagues, and it's a good time for personal development. And that's why it's something that we have emphasized on during this really, really difficult time. The program that we talked about, I'm Remarkable program, is not just about yourselves, but it's about others and why individually you are remarkable, why your team around you is also remarkable. I think that sense of team spirit, that sense of self-advocacy is really important in dire situations that we're facing today. We operate a business where the team is really, really important, right? When you leave your shift in the morning, you need to have the trust and confidence that the person taking over your shift is going to keep it running seamlessly so that the guests coming in do not feel a drop off in service levels. This program is one of our ways of helping to build that strength and allies across teams. And as we get ready for the rebound, as restrictions are eased and equity and inclusion becomes even more important for us to bring out and remind people that there is a lot to be hopeful for, and being together will help them pull through this in the strongest way possible. Hopefully that answered the question. Thank you.
Well, I know that I'm certainly motivated and inspired to hear that, and certainly felt the empathy and understanding in your communication. Yes, thank you to you and all of your team for what you have done for all of us. Travel is something that every data point is saying that we're ready to see the world again. We're ready to see each other again. And that is something that IHG does for us. So hang on, team, and we'll all be there as soon as we can. Appreciate you keeping the team motivated in between, Rajit. Thank you. We now have a question from Tanushree, and I think it's a good one. We touched on this just a little bit earlier, but I think it would be nice to dive into it a bit more. And this can go to anyone. Maybe we can give Rajit a breather with that good answer that he just shared with us. But maybe Kat or Geetha, how can you translate DEI from like your company's mission and what you're doing with employees into everyday life and everyday action? So this is bigger than just our work days, but extends to our full day every day. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts, and I'm very passionate about. I think if I think about my children and modeling behaviour, calling out inappropriate behaviour, teaching them to educate themselves appropriately, to understand different people, different ways of life, to respect people. I think if we focus our energy on children, eventually that's going to transpire to a better society. And I think really, I mean, that is something that I try to do every day. As an example of that, my husband and I work very hard at making sure our children don't see gender when they watch sport. We're a very passionate sporting family, and we watch a lot of sport. We watch Olympics, we watch Paralympics, we watch women's sport, men's sport. We don't call it women's sport and men's sport in our house. We just watch sport, and it all has equal footing, it all has equal status, and we celebrate the qualities. I thought the Paralympics was a wonderful example to educate the children on the recent Paralympics, on the exquisite skills of people who are different from them. And I think those are the things, little things, all the time. Consistency is important. And I think that's something we can look at doing ourselves. That will be my feedback on that. Great question.
That was
Geetha, did you
wonderful.
want to add?
Yeah, I actually, honestly, I have two children myself, and you know, it's exactly what you say. You say one thing in the organization, how can you bring it out? Because, and what's your social circle, right? You work with your social circle, so that's the best thing. And definitely family, but it's always two ways. It's not just one way. You know, my children call out my behavior as well. So we always have to be very open end of the day. I think it's important because my kids, you know, they grow up, and exactly like what Kat says, you know, they don't look at gender, they don't look at, for them, everything, inclusivity, especially my son, is a very, very big thing. And this is important because it has to be two ways. And you take it to your family. It goes beyond your family, it goes into your social circle. So anything that you can do, and every time you have to remind yourselves, even in the office, outside the office, it's always that small little thing, you know, you have to keep, it is important that you keep it, you practice it, you preach it, you believe in it, you breathe it. It is, you know, part of your life. So I think fully, I think I can relate to exactly what Kat is saying here. And I'm glad to hear that you're part of a very big sporting family by the sounds of it. Yeah.
I like that as well. There's a global dialogue that's happening now, and it's an opportunity for all of us to lean in. But what I think you both have highlighted is it starts with us. Yes, it starts in our homes, particularly if you have children, but then there you have your sphere of influence. So it most definitely goes beyond the workplace, and those are all good ideas. Thank you. For any three of you, and feel free just to come off mute or raise your hand if this is a question that you are open to leaning into. But Maureen asked a good question. She says, does I am remarkable mean I am special? I am different? She goes on to say that we can all be remarkable in different ways, but is it possible that we share the same quality and still be remarkable? So anyone have thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would agree in that I think I am remarkable it does mean for me that everyone is special, everyone is remarkable. I think I am different. I am unique, and I think everybody is unique. And I agree with you. I think we can all be remarkable in different ways, in unique ways, but we express equality in a different way to each other. So I think there's a I agree with the sentiment of this question. I don't actually know if I have anything more to add than that, but I do think there's a uniqueness we all bring that is remarkable, and we all are remarkable. But yes, we can share the same qualities and still be remarkable and unique, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would just expand on that slightly. Maureen, I know you're not asking the question to hear from me internally, but I expanding on what you just so kindly shared, Kat, is I think there is a fine distinction perhaps between remarkable and special. Stating I am remarkable, as hard as completing that sentence, I am remarkable because is, I think it takes new meaning when we say I am special because. And I read into it that I'm no more remarkable perhaps than anyone else, but I'm most definitely no more special than anyone else. But there instead that there is something remarkable and special and unique about each and every one of us. And just how do we come together to identify that, help people surface it, talk about it through, yes, self-advocacy, but also through allyship. But I'm with you on the spirit of the question. It's a step forward to say I am remarkable because, but it is not because I'm special, or most definitely more special. But thank you for that. So we have just one more question. This time has flown by. I can't believe it is already approaching the end. And our last question comes from Jawan, who is in Kuala Lumpur. And I think it would be lovely if each of you could just chime in on this one, which is, what are you doing personally to drive allyship? And you've each one shared what you're doing, but what about it do you find fulfilling? Rajit, maybe is that something you're comfortable starting?
Sure, I can give a crack. I think there's so many things you can do when it comes to allyship. And for me, a simple habit that I have is when I go into discussions, I kind of keep the inclusiveness mindset in mind. So ensuring diversity of views is something that I hold very, very important before making decisions. So I do proactively invite views and comments from teams outside of the working group and function, because a fresh set of eyes and perspectives is what we need to deal with the ever-changing world that we are facing. Take the pandemic, for example, right? Where the old rule book is thrown out of the window. Dealing with a new problem requires fresh thinking, and that's where external lens can play a huge role. And that's why I think it's not just about just being inclusive, how being inclusive does then serve a purpose of being more effective.
I think
yeah, please do, Geetha.
Just to add to that, I think in terms of, it's also about behavior, and I do agree with Rajit to a great extent. One of the things is to me, I think it's important to be both available and accessible. For people to, you need to allow the opportunity for people to express their opinions. And sometimes, it's within closed groups, sometimes it's within more, within a bigger forum. But I think what is key is making ourselves accessible, not just available, accessible, spending that time listening. I think Kat said earlier, have that little, just give them that opportunity to express themselves. I think it's very important. That's key. And creating safe spaces so that they can express within safe spaces, that they can express themselves as well. So these are a few things that, again, consciously, I make that effort also, because time is very limited. And, now everything with the pandemic, everything is virtual, but you really got to find time, make yourself available, listen, and allow people to express themselves.
Kat, any thoughts from you?
Look, I think for me, I think the thing that I find fulfilling, and I talk about the I am remarkable because, as I say, we're still, starting our journey really in an ANZ perspective. I think what I find fulfilling there is the sort of micro sessions and the smaller connects post those workshops and the practice sessions, and then ultimately the change and the confidence that you start to see just creeping in, and that's for me the most fulfilling thing is seeing people fill their own space with the talent that they have and the gifts that they have, and I just you can't ask for more than that, really. I think that's incredible.
Thank you so much. Just a few small things from my side before we say farewell. Been jotting down some notes here in this bright orange book. I started imagining a word cloud when we finished, but quickly realized you just had too many good phrases and that I couldn't fit in single words. But everything from your desire to have your teams reflect the communities in which you work, making consistent actions, even though they may feel small when you put them forward, that you've come to recognize that consistency really does matter. I loved, Geetha, resilient, independent business leader, but a proud wife and mother, and how thinking about self-advocacy in the workplace and beyond and allyship can complete us all. That was special. To be available, to be accessible, that we all, no matter in this group, our backgrounds, we found it difficult to answer the question for ourselves. I know I do. I am remarkable because, but yet you were each passionate enough about talent development. And Rajit, that was the beginning of your journey, that you knew that wouldn't be possible unless you really embraced allyship and diversity and inclusion. Empathy was something that just came up almost, from the beginning through the end of the conversation, and how important it is to recognize that if we come together, that we can absolutely make a difference, particularly if we have a purpose. It requires a lifelong partnership, lifelong advocacy that plays into the consistency. And we can only represent and provide for our communities when we reflect our communities, and importantly, when we understand them. So thank you so much. And I just a couple of points that I jotted down at the beginning of the conversation that I'd like to close on is we all have a sphere of influence. It's how we use it that matters. And the three of you today have demonstrated for all of us how we can use our sphere of influence. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and yes, in your own companies, in your own homes, with your friends, but also sharing back with us. Each of us, we need to find our sources of courage so that we can begin to speak up for ourselves. That's the self-advocacy piece, but really importantly, speak up for others. And that's the allyship piece. And I love this one piece, which is empathy is I hear you, I understand you. And allyship is I stand up with you and I am brave with you. And that's what you've shared with us today. You're standing up for so many and you've been brave with us. So thank you. Great engagement. Thank you for carving out the time, but super importantly, as shared, thank you for what you do. Have a great rest of your afternoon and a wonderful I Am Remarkable week.